welcome everyone to the Conspire to Enquire podcast. This is the one and only Sea Monster coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia, joined by the always wonderful Corvid Chaser from Nottingham, UK.
British homies.
What? Did you just say British homies?
Yes.
Oh, it almost sounded like you said British hoagies, and you just made me want a sandwich. So.
That too. If there's some sandwiches washing, hey sandwiches, you have a conscious brain to actually watch podcasts. I'm proud of you.
It's already happening. So, all right. This is, of course, as everyone probably had an interesting day. This is the day after 9/11. This is September 12th, 2013. Yesterday was kind of weird. I don't know.
What was it like in America? Like, I've never been in America when it's happened. So, how long is it now, by the way, since?
Well, 2001, so it's 12 years.
Wow.
It's 12th anniversary. I wasn't out any yesterday. It might just be me personally, but it just really felt, and it may not even be because of that either, because, I've got stuff going on in my life too right now, but it just felt like everything, like there was static. It just felt like, if you want to say the hive mind of the people around me, if you will, was just really preoccupied a little bit on that. I think there was a lot of people, I don't want to say anything bad per se, because a lot of people have to grieve during that time, because a lot of people have loved ones and everything, and of course I didn't have anybody there, but I grieve for it too. I mean, it was horrible. No matter who did it, why, or what, anything, any conspiracy, whatever, people lost their life, and that's terrible. But it just felt like people were in a really bad place. They were grieving. It felt like grieving yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm not even, I don't really do anything for, 9/11, anniversary. So it might have just been coincidence. But it definitely felt like 3 or 4 in the morning this morning, like after the fact, there was definitely a moment where it just seemed like everything kind of got over it a little bit. Like the day had finally passed. Maybe like everyone had finally went to sleep that had gone through the day. Of course, that's all wishy-washy crazy stuff that, whether you believe it or not. But yeah, a lot of people, it's all, remember the people that died, I like that there was a lot of remember the people in service that did, that there was, the cops, the firemen, that's really good. Everything keeps going though. We did have something really interesting. I don't know if you heard about it or not. We had supposedly it was supposed to be a 2 million biker, not a rally, but a ride through DC. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't hear about it at all. No.
Yeah. They didn't report a lot on it. Interestingly enough, it seems like I don't know. A lot of the pictures, it seemed like there was a lot of bikers that had signs that was like 9/11 truth. We want truth. And all this.
I did see there was a lot of 9/11 truth stuff, like on Times Square, like giant billboards that were like orange and white billboards that they were advertising.
People had commissioned.
Not advertising, that's the wrong word, but basically just to raise awareness.
Exactly.
Really,
yeah. It was supposedly, though, that they were there in sort of retaliation of what originally was supposed to be a million Muslim march or something freedom march, and I don't think that even ended up happening, honestly. And I'm not sure that there was 2 million bikers that went through DC either, but there was a whole hell of a lot that went through. I was
going to say 2 million's a lot anyway, but
if it were 5,000, it would look just like 2 million to most people. So, but that happened, and the interesting thing about it was they didn't get a permit. They tried to get a permit, and they were denied the permit, which a lot of people thought was horrible because there was supposedly several other things that got permits that day that were way less and of a big deal, because it would have been in DC's interest to give them a permit, because the permit was so that they could block one lane of traffic or something and get the bikes through.
Oh, I see.
So that the whole thing only took a couple hours instead of 6 or 7 hours. So I think that ended up happening kind of anyway. I haven't really seen, because some of the pictures that I've seen from there, or the video from above, overhead video, has been, blocked streets and stuff, because they were like, because a lot of people was like, well, you can't do it now. They're like, no, we can. We just have to obey the street laws. We can't block off roads or anything. It's just,
they're not asking much, really, if that's all they're needing.
Well, and it's really interesting though, because this ties into the other thing I wanted to talk about. The other day, one of my good friends online that I've known for a long time, she was talking to me, and she kind of felt bad because she was like, I don't know if I'm a bad person, because she was being really open about it. She was like, because I see all this stuff going on in the world, and she's like, and some of the powers that be, some of the bad people are like, oh well, the sheeple. The sheep that are people out there, they're taking up resources, they're doing all this, and people are just horrible and don't care and all this, and it's basically the whole idea of population needs to be knocked down. And she's like, the funny thing is she says the more she looks at it, she sees examples of exactly that, and she's like, well, part of her goes, I almost agree, because we're horrible, which I can agree with that. A lot of people are horrible, but bless her heart, whatever you want to take that as, I say, I said, well, you got to be careful, because that's where your own heroic side, your own brave side has to come in, because you have to realize that, even if you are one of them people, and be the change that happens to get out of that. If you know that kind of stuff happens and that stuff's going on, change it. The change starts with you, and I seen this bike stuff happen, and that's, and the funny thing is, a lot of those same people, now I understand, especially you living in Britain, have a completely different outlook on it, and I love the outlook, say like the gun stuff, which America's completely different about, and one day maybe we could have a show more on stuff like that.
Yeah,
because
easily.
I think it's really fascinating talking to you about gun stuff. Because in the end we have different views, but in the end we both want peace. So it's really interesting. But a lot of them same people were the people that were the bikers that were going up there, and there's a lot that needs to be looked at this, because I want to show, or say at least, I took a screen cap of a little bit of a forum that I seen when I was looking up stuff to do with the bikers. And there was just a couple comments, and it really took a good, a cross-reference of the ideals that's going on.
Yeah.
Of course, emotions run high, of course, on 9/11. But, one person's like, all I can say is God bless these guys, keep them safe. Slapping America's face to deny them the permit and all this, and they're coming anyway, exclamation, 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 exclamation. Nothing but, and there's all like this, nothing but outright respect for the patriotic bikers and all, which, seems pretty good. And then the next comment's like, it's obvious who owns the media in the U.S. since no one has been reporting it. The local stations feel the rumbling in the buildings, but they won't venture out to put them in the news. I thought that was interesting to see after that. And then this is where the problem lies. Now, again, not all these people. Actually, I just noticed something I hadn't noticed before. Oh boy, this next guy, which I'll remain nameless. Interesting, the Islamists choose 9/11 to hold their march. Hateful and arrogant scums. I would not be upset if some of the red-blooded Americans beat the daylights out of the marchers.
What is wrong with people? Really? Like, it's like they want someone to react to what they're saying.
Yeah, and I would probably think that was just a troll.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's too on the button of what they knew would piss someone off.
Well, what's interesting...
Surely no one can have that opinion. Surely.
And this person may still be a troll, but they've got the icon of a top commenter, so they comment a lot.
Oh. They troll a baby, then.
And... it's evidently, because it says where they're at, or like what group they're part of, like different colleges and stuff. And this one says Christian, the person that said that says Christian activist for the kingdom of heaven. So
they're not going to let you in if you have that opinion, matey, just to tell you that. so 3 people commented under that, and the first one was like, well said, I second that. And I'm like, okay. And the next guys said, I've seen conflicting reports about the Muslims were marching. I heard not many Muslims were planning to attend. Now that kind of sounds like the voice of reason to me, going, well, it really wasn't a thing, was it? But question mark, always got to put the question mark. And then, then the guy under that says, that's the Christian spirit. So, which is actually, it could have been sarcastic.
I'm pretty sure it was sarcastic that the guy said that, but but it's just, and it just seems to be those different kinds of flavors over and over and over for these types of things. And really people need to realize, man, that's the problem. Now that's one other thing. And I know you've got a couple things you want to talk about too, so I'll wrap this up. But, I've gotten a little bit of feedback from a couple different people that have happened to catch the podcast. And they're of the Christian belief system. Which is fine. I have no problem with that. But
exactly.
We've said a couple things that doesn't necessarily go against Christianity, but just leaves room, I would like to say, for other stuff. And if we didn't come off as leaving room for other stuff and against Christianity, I do apologize. I've never, and I'm sure you feel the same, would never be necessarily good. If whatever you're doing, if it's peaceful, I'm sure I could speak for you as well. We don't care. If it's peaceful and it works for you,
don't hurt anybody.
Just go well. So, but those types of Christians that feel like they don't like hearing anything against their religion, I would like to try to implore you to please, if you're listening to this, don't stop listening, because we're not a roadblock. We're not trying to roadblock anything, and I almost want to be apologetic, but then again, I don't want to be, because I don't feel like I'm saying anything wrong.
Totally.
We could be wrong about anything. So don't think that we feel like, oh, we're right, you're wrong type thing. So, I think you would benefit from getting to listen and watch, and wrap your mind around some of the ideas. And if they don't jive with you, man, just drop them. It's fine.
There is no right and wrong. It's okay. Just listen and listen with an open mind. That's it. At the end of the day.
We are here to inspire you to inquire, and we're to conspire to inspire to inquire. But that would be a tongue twister, so we can't really do that. So.
Yeah.
But that's really what we're here for. So that's, to sum it up, that's basically was the 9/11 thing, and that's kind of what's been going through my mind with all that kind of stuff. So, in your neck of the woods over there, you said that you've saw some interesting things lately.
I was going to say anyway about 9/11 starter, really, that, do you remember where you were when it happened? Because everybody always says they remember what they were doing. I mean, it would be so different for you, because obviously there's the time delay of news needing to report it over here. So, you know.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, I probably would have, I probably believe your media sources before I would this country's media sources. You probably got the true story before we did. I really don't have an interesting story of that. I was at home, and we didn't have the television on, and was doing my own stuff. I think I was supposed to go to band practice, because at the time I still had a band going with some friends, and we ended up speaking on the phone, and we were just both very somber. We're just like, because it was my drummer I spoke to. I was like, I don't think because at that point, I don't know if everyone really understood the gravity situation.
Definitely, the grandeur of how much it would affect people. I don't think people realized.
It literally was a a moment in time where before that and after that, it was sort of like, BC and AD type thing. There was before 9/11 and after 9/11. And obviously that shows in the world, too. Look at all the laws and stuff that's happened of it. So, yeah, I don't really have an interesting story. My mother, my biological mother, she was still alive at the time. And unfortunately, she got to see that. But she didn't get to see... She got to see everyone become really patriotic. But she didn't necessarily get to see everyone... She didn't get to see what a lot of people would think is of the tyranny that's come about now from a lot of the laws being just horrible.
Just
over
the amount of laws that have been reinforced on travel and the types of travel now. I mean, just so much as just because I'm going to America in a few months, but just what you have to put on a visa now.
Yeah, I'm sure it's changed everything for you as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, just being able to get into the country, just the amount of security that's upped, and it's like, that is literally closing the stable door when the horse is bolted. It's all right doing that now, but seriously, it's like, why didn't you realize beforehand you should have been doing that? So,
yeah,
and
it's all one of the things that needs to be within reason as well.
Yeah, don't go over the top with it. But geez, just common sense, man.
Absolutely.
I mean, just things like you're not allowed certain types of, an amount of liquid on a plane or food or anything because it could be an explosive. It's like, come on now. Like, I've got diabetic friends. I know people that need medications and food to eat and things like that you can't just be like without liquids until they bring it to you on a 12-hour flight, when you first get it. It's just, it doesn't make any sense to be that way.
Now, if they could guarantee, like, if you're a diabetic or something and you had medicine or something, and they could almost kind of like a coat check. If they're like, okay, if you're that, we can take it, but we give you this ticket. And if you need it, you can tell us. We will supervise, and you can take care of it and all that. I don't see any problem with that. I don't want to give up any freedoms.
I mean, maybe there is. I don't know. Maybe
I don't fly. So, well, I haven't yet. I don't want to say I don't fly. I just haven't flown anywhere.
You will. Keep the hope.
I just don't feel like I'm supposed to have wings. Evolution, but I feel much like a penguin, so I can flap all I want, but I don't go anywhere.
You weren't evolved to do that yet.
But otherwise, very cute. But no, if that was, I guess the difference is I don't want freedoms to be taken away, but I don't mind giving up a few conveniences.
Yeah,
that's okay. But when you start getting over, because there's a fine line into freedoms, then we've got a problem. So I mean, because at some point it's like, what's the point? What are we trying to achieve? If it's sort of like, eventually it boils down to we should all just live in a little box to keep from hurting ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we live the perfect life, which obviously is not.
I don't really know if it's actually made a difference. That's the thing, since they've changed all of this stuff.
In fact, the statistics say it made it worse.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I remember I was in an art exam. I was in my A-levels, as they call them in Britain. I don't quite know what they call that. It's probably high school, I guess, in America.
It's like 9th through 12th grade?
Yeah.
Or do you guys have 12 grades?
I think we have... Yeah, we do have. Yeah, it is. 11th, 12th. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, well then that's junior and senior year high school here.
Yeah,
we have 4 here for high school.
I think that's right.
It's at least close.
But yeah, it was just, I think a lot of people were very impacted when they'd seen it on television because it was the visuals made it more definite and that it had happened. But I think it's just, as we're saying now, like today is the day after. I think the day after was worse because at that point there was photographs of everything. It was on the headlines on the front page.
And it also gave everyone that had seen stuff a day to let it sink in. And I think you're right. I think the shock started to set in as little as a day to like a week later. Because it's too much for you to wrap your head around.
Well, I should think so many people were like, well, I had somebody I knew in that, and the people that were trying to find missing persons for the next month beyond, I would think, like in the rubble and things like that.
Yeah.
that was happening from today onwards. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it was really crazy. It was really crazy.
Just tying in with what you're saying about, like, your friend saying about people shouldn't be, like, populating the Earth, as you were saying. This week, David Hasselhoff actually came forward about his Human Extinction Project, which I completely follow, because you were just saying about, like, you know, we have to be more courageous and actually be the change. I don't even know if that'd make a difference, to be honest. I do understand that where you're coming from, but I believe that there are enough humans on this planet, and if we keep going, there's going to be nothing left for anybody. So if we can actually... I mean, a lot of people probably be like, well, that's very communist, you're not allowed to have children. But why can't we just adopt? You know, there's so many people in this earth already that there isn't any room to keep breeding, and people having 4+ children.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I'm not saying people have to agree with this at all, because it's taken away free will, as you was just saying, about free will and people being allowed to do what they want. But I'm not saying that people shouldn't have families, I'm just meaning that there's a lot more options to do that would help out the earth and make us sustainable, instead of it just being, we'll just deplete it until there's nothing left and not care about it.
You're not coming from the stance of we need to instate these incredibly strict, crazy laws and all this. You're basically saying, and I totally back you with that. I hear that you're like, we need to work on this. This is it's just a fact. It's a fact that eventually there's a finite amount of, and it's not like standing room on the earth, which you got to be careful too, because I know for a fact that the earth can sustain a lot more. A lot what it comes down to is how frugally you use things. Say like not having too many children and all that play into that. And I think that's you know, because it's one of those things where one or actually, if you want to look at it, 2 people can make 4 people, can make 8 people, can make 16 people. And that's if the numbers don't increase on their own. It's just this exponential multiplier effect that just, it can go crazy. And you know, we only have one Earth that we know of right now, and we've got to think about that. And as you were saying, it's not like a communist thing or, you know, a socialist thing or anything like that. It's more of just what is it? Just a responsibility.
Yeah,
it's just being responsible. Yeah.
Yeah, and realizing how important it is. I mean, we were talking about the cloning of food and making sure that food can be cloned, like the burger that they made, you know, where they're able to copy burgers and... Oh, yeah,
the synthetic grown meat stuff. Yeah,
and things like that. It's like, that's not helping anything. Why don't we actually realize
it's not even needed
before it gets to that? Yeah.
It's not even needed. You know, Americans throw away 40 to 50% of every single bit of food that's in the grocery stores right now.
So just think about fixing that before we're just like, let's make more that doesn't even have any reason behind it.
We're definitely not to the point of it being dire enough yet that we have to clone cheeseburgers.
That's just stupid.
Plus,
at least clone something that's more healthy. It's just
the thing is nature's really good at cloning. It's called planting seeds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not genetically modified ones either.
And on that vein anyway, I did watch an amazing documentary called Samsara today, which is actually Sanskrit for the eternal wheel of life.
Right.
And it came out in 2011, and it's one of those, it has nothing but soundtrack to it. The guys who created it, forgive me, I forget their name, they spent 5 years creating this movie. It is a movie, not a documentary. It's 2 hours. And it's just literally showing the diversity of the earth. And it starts with, like, kind of has sections to it of, like, you know, religion, and what we do with religion, turning it into culture and how that affects the world. But it keeps going until it shows, as we were just talking about, how humans have populated the earth and what they have done because of that. So part of it, I got told about this because a friend had put up 6 minutes of the movie, which was a part of showing Chinese factories and how efficient they are at gutting chickens quickly and putting them in packets. And what happens to chicken beforehand is just like a giant factory with this like tractor with brushes that just brushes in the chickens into this bucket, just drives along and sucks them up, and they just get out the other side, live chickens, they're all alive, into boxes that then get hung up quickly, go into another room. These people just gut them straight away. It's just like, it's efficient, that's what it is, and that's what the world needs. And it comes out the other side in a packet, and it was just basically, it's not trying to insult anything, it's just showing this is what human people do now. This is what the world's got to.
It's reality.
And the person on Facebook that posted this, they had only posted this part, so they're like, oh my god, humans are terrible, look what we do, why do we do this? And I just said, have you watched the whole movie? Have you even bothered to put it into perspective? Because that is what that movie exists for, to put your human life in perspective of everything else.
Right.
And your standpoint you're having is very selfish, going, we're terrible, we're awful. The whole point it exists is to show how far we've come. Be it that we haven't or have, that's for your decision to make once you've seen the movie. Right. But it does end up having, that we've turned obese, that we need operations, and then there's a part of the movie which documents the sex industry and in Japan how they have dolls that are so lifelike that, you could never imagine them being fake. It's just, it covers so much, and as I said, it's just an eye-opener at the end. You take away what you want from it.
What was the name of this again?
Samsara.
Okay. Which that's a practice anyway. I mean, that's a philosophy to start with. But it's the name of that philosophy is this movie. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, because I've heard of that before. But I hadn't heard of the movie per se.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't know it was a movie until I found it out today, and I watched it today. And yesterday I watched. It's from 2011, so it's not very that new. It's newish, but the fact that they spent 5 years filming it,
Oh, well then, yeah, then it's relevant.
In that kind of time frame, it was 5 years before 2011 that it was made, so, you go back into that.
I'd say anything after 2001, like we were saying, the whole, the 9/11 thing, that's the biggest thing that's changed the world lately.
Yeah, definitely. It's affected time frames easily.
That's the biggest thing I think of is if it's before then, you might have to look at it through a filter, But yeah, I would like to check that out. That's sounds like
it just really makes you appreciate things as well. Like, I mean, this friend of mine was like, "Oh, we're awful, terrible people." I was like, "But the rest of it makes you really." It just had, like in India with the diversity of the color of what they wear when they do religious ceremonies, and when in Tibet what they do. It's just how the whole earth still keeps moving, and it keeps going on despite you saying that people are horrible and that whatever we do, it's like, well, life's still going to carry on whether you think that.
I think that's an interesting point as well, because it's is that not sort of a yin and yang thing? It's sort of like for better or for worse, this is what we are. And really before, if we do have the outlook to want to be a lot better per se one day, then we have to take an unconditional look at where we are, be it bad or good or whatever. We have to see where we're at and what we're like, and appreciate the good things and be hopeful about the bad, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
So, but yeah, I totally got to watch that. That sounds really interesting. So is that the did you say you seen something else as well that was interesting?
The other thing was, it was called it was either The Conscious Evolution, I think was the name title of it. I think. And again, that was three guys that the intro to the movie is just, this is our opinion, we're not telling you to believe it, but this is what we believe. And they just were talking about how the world is so focused on money and what we would do without it if we didn't have it, and if people didn't think they had to be slaves to jobs, and how happier we would be, and how we would actually live for just wanting to be alive instead of thinking that you've got to live till you die and that's it. And it was, again, another eye-opening documentary to make you reevaluate what's important. I think that was another thing that sounds like a lot of the stuff that Zeitgeist movement. Definitely, it was very inspired by, easily.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Which a lot of people would argue that there would be no incentive to move forward with anything, and now I'm kind of like, well, I don't know, because there's a lot of things. What incentive do we have to do this? What we're doing right now?
How do we know if we haven't even tried that yet?
We don't. You and I don't get paid to do this.
No.
In fact, if anything, it's a cumbersome thing, but it's very self-rewarding.
Exactly. I think 90% of things I do in my own life are not for money. I don't care what people say. It's like, if you have got that standpoint that you are just literally getting up in the morning, going to work, when you get out of work, go back to bed and do it the next day. You need to change your life, man. You really do.
Yeah.
I just don't think anybody has to do that. It's not the way to live at all.
Yeah.
It's just so unrewarding, as we're saying.
I concur wholeheartedly. Yeah, I would definitely, before we sign off, I definitely would like to have at least write that down. So for sure, that's I live for stuff like that. I'm the guy that does 5 or 6 hour extremely boring documentaries just on in the background while I do something else, because I just eat it up, man. The best stuff is like that also. I hate something when it has way too much music and pictures and all kinds of crazy stuff, because you're not getting any knowledge, man. If a guy's got a PowerPoint and they just nonstop talking about said PowerPoint and it's like an hour and a half long, I'm in seventh heaven.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I love the lecture. But I tend to like boring crap anyway. So
it's not boring. That's totally.
It's
relative.
Actually not.
If something's boring, that's because the person themselves boring and they're not even getting anything from it. So that's their problem.
That's it, isn't it? Really, it's whether or not you understand how important or not something is that someone's talking about. It's definitely engaging for me. So, but speaking of engaging, we're through the first 30 minutes, so we got about an hour or so more that we'd like to go on about. And then, of course, this is the main topic for the show, which is, of course, if you're watching the show on YouTube, you probably got a little thing down there that says it's on paganism. Now, that's just in general. Now, I've been looking forward to this for a long time, because I have known a lot of different people that claim to be pagan, but they all believe or act a lot differently. So I guess really then the question, and I'm kind of being devil's advocate here, is at least in the States, the number one religion is Christianity. So I'd like to hear a lot of comparison, just as a point of reference of just the reality of this, and what you think personally. Because you've told me before that it is very much so a personal thing. So you have the floor.
Well, obviously, to start with, if I make any comparisons, it's not to insult anybody. That's not the reason I'm doing it. It's just for the fact that that's, as you're saying, it's a fact thing. It's actually history. That is what's happened. So I'm not in any way trying to say this was better or it should be this way. But as you were saying, that each pagan has a different way. I mean, people have always said, ask 10 pagans, you get 10 different answers. I think it is personal. And Bjork said it best when she said it's as personal as a fingerprint, because I think that everybody's religion should be literally what they themselves believe in the core of them. It shouldn't have to be a blanket term that everybody gets together and chants and does the same thing, because then you just literally... it's not for you, you're doing it for someone else instead of yourself. So it's not bettering you, I believe. So, I guess to start with, the easiest thing to start with really is the wheel of the year, or where the dates come from in paganism, because we kind of work with what I would say, these are all my personal beliefs, with the rhythms of nature. So it is a very nature-based religion. And to be pagan just basically means that you live or come from the woods. So that's the default way of describing what a pagan is.
Really?
That's all it means.
I mean, is that like a literal name, that's translation?
I couldn't tell you if it was translation, to be honest, actually. I think it was probably a name that was given to people that came from the woods before the religion got put to it, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
So
basically, is the people of nature people.
Just a dweller of the forest, basically. That's how it starts out from.
Okay.
And the wheel of the year is basically what they would follow, just so that they would know when to harvest crops and know when things were happening in the earth and actually work alongside it, which I think we've lost a lot of now because, you know, we have things like artificial lighting and stuff, so we don't pay attention to when sunrise is and when we should be going to sleep, when we should be waking up and working with the energies that are happening in the earth. So
we have artificial timekeepers, watches and stuff, and we don't pay attention to the sun anymore. We could care less.
Yeah,
because we've got a clock on our arm. Why do we need the sun? So
yeah, I mean, time was invented. You know, it was given to us. We were given months. We were given the hours of the day just because somebody was like, well, we need to. I guess it's to document the months and has times passing, but that's all it should be. It shouldn't be like, you must have done this by now, or, you know, an enforcer, so to speak. So I guess I just want to start with the start of the Wheel of the Year always would be, for me, Yule, which is December time, which would be Christmas, usually. It falls over a week because it's a solstice, and a solstice literally is, there's 4 of them in the year, and there's the winter, the summer, the autumn, and literally they're in a wheel and they divide up the year basically. So the winter one, it's Germanic in origin, and it basically translates literally as the sun is born again then. So when you go into the sun being literal as the sun being born, in comparison to Christianity, we're talking about the sun as in the child of Jesus. So when you go through a lot of historical...
as Jesus, yeah.
Yes. A lot of historical religions, whenever they mention about the sun, it's literally like how you get Ra in Egyptology. They all were born around that time of the year. The sun was born, but basically it's just when the sun is coming back to the earth, basically. That's the literal translation of all the comparative versions of.
Really quick, I just want to ask: Do you, what kind of a time frame do you even know, or do they even know how far back are we talking here? You know, because you know, Christianity is, as we know it right now, is give or take, you know, like what, 2,000 years, something like that. You know, but at least to the time of Christ. So what kind of time frame? I guess potentially this could go back even like what to like how we were talking about Stonehenge, like Druid times, or
yeah, definitely. Think it without actually looking it up, of course, because I know there was the Picts that were around. They were called that because they literally, instead of writing, they were drawing pictures, which was very similar to obviously
hieroglyphics
in Egypt using hieroglyphics. It was very similar.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So it was happening all at similar same time in the Earth, which is what I'm meaning. Like they never met each other, but it was very similar timed, and that was obviously in Britain. So without putting a time frame on it, I actually couldn't tell you, because when we were looking up Stonehenge stuff, we were having a lot of trouble finding and actually pinpointing dates for that.
Yeah,
so
it's I would say it's
difficult.
probably at least 5,000 to plus.
Yeah,
back.
I was going to say at least around that time, easily.
Because that's a lot of those practices were the same kind of stuff they were doing at Stonehenge. So the soul. Well, really, you don't have to connect those either, because from what it looks like, most belief systems, ancient belief systems, all dealt with, you know, the solstice and time, where, you know, the seasons.
The seasons, that divide it up in between.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But anyway,
yes.
go ahead. I digress.
That's what we're doing it for, so you could ask questions in between.
Absolutely. Well, to me, it makes a difference that, you know, as far as perspective goes, you know, because I playing devil's advocate, I feel like people would go, okay, well, you know, so did these people steal stuff from Christianity, and still is a harsh word. I don't really mean it that bad, but were people inspired by Christianity, or was Christianity inspired by paganism, or was there a mixture, or So it's,
exactly.
Like we said, it's just reality that it doesn't really make anything better than anything else. It's just time-wise. So,
I mean, I'm not an archaeologist. I have real bad time with remembering dates. So please, people, go and investigate yourself to find out about these things. That's the reason I'm
always, do your own homework.
Yes.
Don't just believe us. So
it's not factual what I'm saying. As I said, paganism is a very personal thing. It's based on history, but it's not fact by no means, because a lot of it is literally based on what you think you should achieve or want to do in a religion. So, moving on to in between the next solstice would be, which is February. So February 2nd would
repeat that last little bit. You got a hiccup there.
Oh no!
What did you call it? Did you call it something?
Imulk.
Imulk?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because that definitely cut out when you said that. So
I'm still here.
Skype did not want to hear that. So it's a conspiracy.
Yes, which literally translates as in belly, which or pregnancy for animals. So again, it's just shadowing what's happening in nature. It's not anything that's been invented. It's just and it's Irish, the word imbolc. So again, that was just a word that was used to describe in that time. It's not like a religious holiday name that was invented because of a god or anything. It's just literally, it was a word that was used to describe the time. So they would literally just respect, if I'll go through it more as we go through the whole thing, but during that time you would just be either thinking about plans you want to start or the creativity forming. So it'll be a time of the year when you would be going out to go and start things. But if you just think of pregnancy being the creativity process when things are being formed, then it'd be, as you have like spring cleaning and the getting rid of stuff and then starting again, that would be happening at that time of the year. So it's just, I think it helps to, as we're talking about having a time frame, that would be happening at that time of the year. So
sort of an impregnation of ideals or goals.
Yeah, reevaluating what it is you want to achieve by the end of the year. Not necessarily, having things completed now, but it helps to say to yourself, well, I would love to have done this by this month.
That's at what time? That's at
February 2nd, thereabouts.
So that's really close to it. It's sort of it seems to almost relate to people's having New Year's resolution.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's pretty much equivalent to that. That's interesting. Maybe that came from that.
It could have done. Yeah, possibly. Then moving on to the next one, which is the spring equinox, which is again another solstice, called an equinox because it's when the light is coming back. So it's literally the time. The other was the actual December would have been when you're welcoming it back, but spring is when it actually has come back. So when the clocks go forward, is it forward or is it back? Spring forward, fall back. Yeah. So yes, it is when they go forward. It's called Ostara, which is a Germanic word, but you can already guess what.
Well,
so obviously, it is.
Say that again one more time. We're getting hiccups.
Why is it cutting out every time I say the actual holiday?
I don't know. It's weird. It mostly seems to be on the actual. Just say it. As you said, it's Ostara, and it's what? Ostara.
Ostara, which is, it sounds like Easter. Ostara. So.
Oh, okay, all right.
It's actually a Germanic word, and it's basically celebrating fertility and eggs when the eggs happen in nature. Hence, Easter eggs. Ha ha! How genius! I mean, when
fertility, like rabbits.
Yeah, and chickens and anything else you can think of that's celebrated with Easter eggs. Obviously in the traditional sense, people have, Jesus died on the cross and resurrection and things like that. But when you actually when you actually see that everybody has Easter eggs and we paint eggs and celebrate the egg, don't people think, what's that got to do with that? It's like, well, that's because that's what's happening in nature. That's just the actual thing that's going on at that time.
It doesn't necessarily nullify anything to do with Christianity, but it's pointing towards the nature end of it. You know, for all we know, the two different things were superimposed over each other. It may even been for a reason.
Yeah.
But definitely that is happening in nature, no question.
Exactly.
At that point in time. Okay.
And that would be around March 20th to the 23rd. So that is depending on when the sunrise and the sunset is in your time zone. Of course, that's why it falls over certain dates. So the next would be in April, which would be the 30th, which is called Beltane, which is a fire holiday. Beginning of summer. It's not the actual summer, but it's the start of, and that's Gaelic, which is the start of Scottish and Irish origins.
I feel like summer is definitely oriented with fire in my point of view.
Yeah, definitely.
It feels like a blast furnace for me.
Yeah, I bet it does. I can't really relate to it here in Britain because it's cold all the time.
Just imagine all summer being like 33 degrees Celsius. So.
Oh dear.
And humid.
Humidity, as you said about as well.
It's horrible. So this one is the summer and fire. So
yes. Basically, it's like the time. The holiday itself is a very when animals are rutting, as you would call it, like they're preparing themselves to be the sexual beings that they are to then go create a baby, if you know what I mean. So it's like when stags are rutting against each other and the rams are headbutting and all that kind of stuff. So it's that time.
What does that have to do with fire, though, exactly, or is that?
It's just kind of like the fire of the inspiration to go out and like create, if you know what I mean. So
like a burning desire.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess what would be coupled with that is the desire to actually, as we were talking about the planning in the Involt time. Well, this would be the inspiration to make you go out and do it. So.
Oh, okay.
The fire behind it to actually go, now's the time, stop putting it off, and, actually get on to it.
Awesome.
So then the next is another solstice, which is Letha, which is when it's the middle of summer. So around, a lot of the time in the Earth, it's when the sun is it stays still. So you get things like in the Scandinavias when the sun is up all the time, because it's at a certain point when it's crossing the Earth where it doesn't actually go behind the Earth. So the sun is up all day. It's like the longest day, and you get that. Do you get time savings? Daylight savings time?
Part of the United States does, yeah.
Yeah, it's
here
that
in the eastern part, yeah.
Yeah. So, that is literally the sexuality holiday that everybody enjoys going out and having a good bang. It's a good old holiday for that. It's a great time to celebrate how sexual everybody is.
There you have it, folks. 2013, quote, Corvid Chaser. Yeah. Everyone likes to go out and have a good bang.
In a jolly good British accent.
Yes. While wearing a top hat. Fluff,
Yes.
fluff, fluff, fluff.
I don't have my tea, but I should right now.
Yeah.
And most people watch the sunrise because that would be, as we were talking about the solstice at Stonehenge, that would be when most people would go to Stonehenge because it would just be, there's so much light that you could be up all night that, when the sun actually comes up the next day, it's like, hooray, we made it halfway through the year and we screwed all night, let's celebrate.
I was going to say this is going extremely raunchy for what I was going for. But yeah, no, really, in literal terms, then that would have been probably a drunken, albeit peaceful, sort of a orgy celebration, if you will, maybe something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's mating season for animals. That's what would be happening then. That's what animals do. They just animalistically mate. So, that would be happening at that time.
The humans are like, we could do that.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
yes, we're allowed to do that now, are we? God, can you imagine if they actually said, this holiday, the pagans tell you to go out and flowers each other. So, I'm sure they'd love bringing out cards for that, wouldn't they? Be a great holiday.
I had no idea you was going to be this colorful for this. Can't even talk. I think we just lost my dad.
Choose to beep out my terrible language, old boy.
I'm probably gonna do the way we do Craig Ferguson here when he says something. He's like, he'll open his mouth and say something, and they just superimpose him going juicy fruit. So
yeah, we could do that.
Let's go out and juicy fruit each other.
Just say some lovely word like flowers or something over my mouth.
I just sampled you saying flowers, and that's what you're gonna say. Let's go out and flowers each other.
That just becomes a metaphor in its own then. Let's go out and have a good flower, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's go have a flower behind the bicycle sheds.
I guess that puts new meaning to blowing dandelions.
Oh dear. You went there. You totally went there. Anyway, moving swiftly on.
I kept it under the radar.
Yes, yes. See into it what you will. You were just talking about blowing flowers. There's nothing wrong with that. So, the next holiday would be August 1st, which is Lammas, which is an Irish festival. The Harvest Festival, as it is known otherwise, when we go out and we reap the corn, we bring in all the fruits, and you're basically just grateful for just how much that nature has provided for you and how much hard work you put into it whilst you're getting busy inside. Nature was doing her thing outside, growing things. So,
right.
It will also be a time of the year when you would harvest your plans. So if you spent a lot of time putting effort into plans, then you go, well, where are we at right now, and how are we going to complete it? So it would be the time of, if you wanted to put it into ritualistic sense, that people would sit down and go, well, what needs to be done that we haven't completed yet before the end of the year?
Right.
Most people, it's the time when they would harvest wheat. So it's a wheat festival where they bake bread, and that would be the time when they bake bread and store it and make sure they'd have enough for the winter. So it's preparatory for the winter, basically. And then we move on to Mabon, which is actually coming up next week. So I'm actually preparing for that as we speak. It's the fall equinox, so otherwise it's when autumn becomes apparent, when all the leaves start turning. And Thanksgiving actually is basically around this time. So you will just be giving thanks for all the stuff that you got last month, the month before that. So thanking nature for how much that you've got stockpiled up in your barn.
Kind of like thankful for
yes,
so
definitely.
Before it was like a huge reaping.
Yes,
what
all the
you
effort
sowed.
that needs to be done.
Okay.
Which it would take, a lot of time back then because they didn't have, tractors and things that would do it for them.
And if you didn't have said thing, you probably wouldn't make it through.
Yeah, exactly.
So this wasn't, I forgot to pick up the bread at the supermarket. This was, we all die if we didn't do well. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that probably needs to be said because all this stuff wasn't just how do I put this? It wasn't just a sort of a side hobby that people were doing. This was life.
Yep.
This was every day. If you didn't pay attention to this stuff, and this may be one of those good examples of much like the Japanese samurai swords. I know that's a stretch, but hear me out.
I'll let you go with this.
Yeah, well, and I don't want to superimpose what you're saying, but I'm making an analogy. It's the only reason why the Japanese samurai sword was able to be such a fine art for so long, which it has been for over 1,000 years, has been because they sort of made the procedure sacred, and it kept people from I don't know, just making it pointless or messing up and losing the knowledge. So in a way, I can kind of see where this was so important, and it was something that people couldn't overlook or forget about, and it was so tied into day-to-day life that this was not just a hobby on the side. It was this was life. This everything had to do. Much like if you're on a farm, if you grew up on a farm or whatever, that was the way of life. You couldn't just forget to milk the cow or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, this stuff.
Get up in the morning, and that's what you have to do to get things working. You know,
otherwise
up until
you don't
when
survive.
You go to sleep. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people don't remember that's how we did live. I'm not saying we have to go back to that, because it's like,
it was a very thankful way of living, though.
Very, appreciative and humble. Grateful. Humble as well. Down to earth living, that you realize where things come from, and learning about life that way. Like, as we were saying, living on a farm, you'd actually learn about facts of nature and things like that instead of. So
I could imagine it'd be very gratifying as well.
Yeah, like I was able to make that food that I'm eating instead of just. I don't know where it came from. Yeah. I'm not connected to it. There's none of my love that's gone into that. So Yeah,
and that doesn't even necessarily have to be literal. Just figuratively speaking, when you work for something that hard, you it may not be any different than your neighbors, but you just feel figuratively an attachment to it.
Yeah.
And it's like, by God, I cooked this meal. I'm going to eat it. You know? I grew it, everything. Absolutely.
Makes you appreciate it more, definitely.
Absolutely.
So then as you would call it, the last holiday, I suppose, is Samhain, which most people call Halloween. And that's also Gaelic. And it's the summer's end. When summer ends, it's the end of the year. It falls on October 31st. And it is when, basically, we will appreciate our ancestors. And it's when the veil of the living and people that have passed away will be close together. So if you wish to communicate with loved ones or appreciate when they were alive or remember them, and that would be the day that you would. A tradition that a lot of people do is when they have a dinner that night, they'll set a place at the table for whoever isn't with them anymore and actually serve food as though they are with us still, just to appreciate, remember when they were here, and tell stories of, remembering when people were around. So
I get the oppression. No, I get the oppression. I get the.
It sounds like a disease. I've got the oppressions.
Oh, it's been one of those days, everybody. I get the impression that that's something that across a lot of belief systems is exactly the same.
Definitely.
Probably the tamest would be. Well, I don't even know if Christians really. Traditionally, I think they do a fall festival, which oddly sounds more pagan, but but they don't. Oh God, I'm going to hell if there is one. I was thinking, the little voice in the back of my head said, "No, that's when Jesus dressed up as a skeleton and went around and got candy." But that's I have a half trying to edit that out. Of course, no, but really. I say what religion? Is it Catholic that, or no? Well, there's say the South American, the Day of the Dead.
I was just going to say,
what religion is that based to? Because I know most South Americans.
Spanish, isn't it? Is it?
Well, yeah, but most South American Spanish people are Catholic.
Yeah, good point.
So I don't know how that. Maybe that's just
But they don't do it anywhere.
A tangent.
Do they?
No, I think that's still a very big deal.
I don't.
This is where we're cultured, folks.
Yeah, I don't see anywhere in the world. I mean, anywhere else.
No,
Do it, is what I mean. So,
but I guess in the end, all I was trying to say was, it seems like, for better or for worse, Halloween always has a sort of a slight bit of macabre or death. Remembrance of the dead. It seems like every different belief I've heard of sort of has, except for maybe Christianity. I just think that's maybe that's just because I think inherently Christianity doesn't embrace death aside from, say, like maybe Jesus's death, something like that. I don't know. I can't really speak for everything.
They just need to. They make you scared of it too much. Like, if when you die, you will be judged, and if you haven't been good, you're going to hell. Instead of it being a positive thing, like, well, you're going to die, but it's not the end. Instead of having it that way, which they could, because, you know, it's like if you're supposed to live in, you know, the kingdom of heaven for the rest of your life, you're not actually going to die for something bad. But I guess because there is a good and a bad, then they don't really mention it much.
And really, honestly, that's not to say that there isn't a lot of Christians that wholeheartly do that.
Oh, of course,
Because I'm sure there's a lot of Christians that are like, well, I'm not afraid of dying, you know. It's, So really, inherently, they could sort of adopt Halloween as a I'm not afraid of death holiday, really.
Definitely. I just to represent it, at least, if nothing else, to just teach younger generations as well, to just say it's nothing to be afraid of, definitely.
I think that would be a lot better than what I feel like the general consensus is now. And again, I don't speak for everyone, but just from what I've seen, a lot of people that are really, really conservative Christian that I know of, kind of feel Halloween as almost something. I don't even think they know why. Something that has satanic overtones and all this kind of thing. I'm not quite sure where that came from, and that's something that I definitely I don't know if you were ready to get into that, but what, you know, maybe this is a good spring point for that, but because that's one thing for paganism as well. I know that a lot of people understand a lot of things, symbols, holidays like Halloween as being satanic or evil in nature. Like, what is your thought on that? I guess really is.
Well, overall, I think because Satanism was invented to insult Christianity, that was the point of the religion being invented. It's not even a recent thing. I think it was the 70s, and the guy who invented it, I have all of his books. Yeah, I really remembered that name well, didn't I?
I know. He's got a sort of an odd name.
Bald guy. We know who we're talking about. Go look it up, everybody. You know who I'm talking about.
I know his name.
The guy who invented Satanism.
LaVey.
That's him. Well done. We got that together.
Was it
Anton LaVey. There we go. We got there. You know, he just
officially a Satanist.
Yeah, obviously, you know. But he just believed that Christianity had some ideals that he didn't agree with, so he just like, well, I'm going to invent this, and if people follow it, then that's great. And they did.
Now, was that when? Because I doubt that's when the entire idea of Satanism. Maybe that's when it was sort of labeled and stamped and put in a package.
Definitely had something to call it.
I'm sure some of the idea goes way back.
Oh, probably. Definitely. Yeah, that's why I'm always confused as to how it all got boiled down to that. Because obviously the iconography and the symbolism was so powerful that it must have just overrode anything else. Because I think a lot of people pinpoint druids as being very barbaric and sacrificing humans and things like that. But they were very peaceful people. So again, I think a lot of it was pinned on them because at the time, the religions that were coming in, such as Christianity, they wanted you to become Christians and not be the religions that were already there beforehand, so they could actually scare people into being controlled, basically. And that was the sad part about it, that paganism fell into that. And because people back then didn't read a lot of the time, anything that was written down, you know, if you could read it, you were very lucky. So I suppose they would use symbolism and actual things like rituals or things you could actually see to be shock tactics to make you think, oh, I don't want to be seen as one of those people or whatever. So maybe it kind of came about around that same time, I guess.
being able to read and to interpret things is definitely a point of power.
Definitely.
In a very uneducated world, at least written language educated world. So yeah, that stands to reason. And to be fair, it's a fact in religious or Christianity history of Christianity that there was, for lack of a better word, sort of a hostile takeover of a lot of other practices. But to be fair, also in their defense, the Christians' defense is they weren't the only religion. Like almost every religion has had a point in time where there were people in the name of said religion that would superimpose other things and copy and annex things together. So it's not, we're not just singling out Christians. It's just,
well, I mean,
again,
talk about, like as we were saying about Vikings, like when they took over, it was just they would use things like that as fearmongering to make you go, well, if you don't do this, you're going to die and be seen as a terrible person, kind of thing. And
it's almost a politics back then.
It is, yeah, because they didn't have governments, obviously. It was very... Yeah,
this was the type of governments.
Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting. Okay.
You know, and I suppose the gods they invented were like their version of the government, I guess.
Well, I mean, at a definition level, it's the same thing. I mean, it's laws or a set of beliefs that you choose to go by for the greater good, I guess, and be governed, which falls under government, or if you're strict with any religion, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I guess you just gotta know whether it's in a positive direction or a negative direction. So, all right. So now, since we've spoke about or touched on the whole satanic end of it, just as a snippet of entertainment, have you ever been called out like that? Because you're openly pagan. Has anyone ever stood in front of you and been like, Satanist or something,
You, sir, are Judas.
Because if you have, I'd like to hear about that. That's really interesting.
Well, when you start work, that is
the part of
time.
NASCAR when we see the crash of the cars. We're like, ooh.
Yeah. Well, when you start work, it's a wonderful time when you have to mix with people that usually you'd never would, because you would never have that choice. You would just be like, I don't like these people. I don't want to hang out with them. But when you work, you have no choice.
Definitely not by choice, yeah.
So I remember when at my previous employment, I've always worn necklaces with, like, this one is the Green Man. It's a beautiful one that was handmade in Norway.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
It's one of my favorite pieces, but I've always worn necklaces. Even if I'm at work, I'll always wear a necklace. But it's not like screaming in your face. They're usually very discreet. And I used to wear one that was 3 triangles interlinked, which to me just basically stands for the powers that be and the phases of life you go through, like the Virgin, the Maiden, and the Crone, like the passing of time, of a woman's time.
Oh, you're paused. Uh-oh.
The Viking.
Wait a minute. Oh, no. Oh, no. You're still paused if you can hear me.
Hello, I'm back. Hello, hello.
Okay.
Hello, can you see me? I'm moving.
You've hit a wrinkle in time. You're. Oh, I think mine reset as well, didn't it?
I could see you. Things are working okay this end. Is everything okay your end?
We sound like we're on a cassette tape now.
It sounds the same here, but
really,
it's the Satanists. They're trying to get me. I tell you.
It's something. I would probably more so say it's the however many thousand miles it is between the two of us. Yeah, it's interesting enough that we can even do this, and for free as well. So
exactly. Shall I continue?
Yeah, where did you leave off? I was
I was saying about a necklace that I wore to work.
Okay, yeah, and then you were talking about the three triangles.
Yeah.
And what they was, and then
Yes.
you just then you went all
Did I
Doctor
just
Who.
disappear at that point? Okay,
Yeah,
well I'll
you
pick up.
flew away in the TARDIS.
Yes.
Oh God, we just did that live on the podcast.
And how many times did it keep happening? Because we seem to talk about time travel a lot.
At least we're not bad at it. Yeah.
Well, it's because we want time travel to happen. You know, if we keep willing it, then somebody that's in a parallel dimension will take us with us one day and go, "Let me show you the wonders of the ways."
When do we want it? It's irrelevant.
So yeah, I used to wear this necklace. I mean, I've always worn different necklaces. On this particular day, and one of my co-workers took me on one side and he was like, "You better be careful where you wear that." And I was like, "Why? Who's it offending? It's triangles. Really? Like, what's wrong with it?" It's like, "Because I would know it's a skinhead affiliation." And I was like, what? And this is what I've come to know in my time of being a pagan. He had a shaved head, he had boots up to his ankles and his trousers tucked in them. He was skinhead material, this guy. I'm not stereotyping, but obviously he told me that. I'd never thought of him that way before that point.
Right.
So as well, you know, if the right clan of people see you wearing that, they might take offense. I was like, because that's obviously why I'm wearing it, isn't it? And I just said, it's nothing to do with that. And I've come across this a lot of times, that Viking symbols or anything to do with runes has been adopted by the skinhead mentality. What's the political correct way of saying that?
You know, didn't that, isn't that a tangent off of the neo-Nazi movement, the skinhead?
Exactly.
So really it's the neo-Nazi.
Yeah, that's the right way of calling it. I'm not trying to insult anyone here. But
which inherently Nazi, the whole ideal of Nazi is to take symbols and invert them, pervert them, you know.
Which is how they got the SS symbol, was a flipped over rune that stands for sun and the power of the sun. Yeah. And when you double it, it becomes an ultimate power. So that's the reason why.
Even the swastika was... if you take that spinning the opposite direction, was isn't it a Buddhist symbol for peace?
Hindu word for peace, I believe. Yeah,
which greatly predates everything.
Yeah, exactly. So just because Hitler was an occultist, he researched all this stuff.
He was, yeah.
You know,
he was actually quite smart when it come to that, because he quite nearly superimposed every other symbol to the point of now it's impossible to show those types of symbols without people relating it.
Definitely.
Yeah. So he kind of won when it comes to that.
Even though he's not here anymore, he's still winning in a way.
Because I'm sure I couldn't. Well, it depends on who you ask if he's still here or not.
Well, I say that in a very loose manner.
So do I, but somebody out there is going, he's still there.
Yeah, he never killed himself.
I do believe his ideals, whether or not he really died that day or not, did go on. I'm sure there's a lot of people, but I'll guarantee you, if you walk around with the original swastika for peace, you're probably going to end up in jail in America. Honestly, and people should be able to walk around. Neo-Nazis should be able to walk around as long as they're not doing anything. But good luck trying it. That's all I got to say. We carry guns here, so.
When this guy said to me, I was like, no. At all what he was talking about. So that was one instance that was quite minor. I remember I was reading a book that was a paganism book at work once, and one of my co-workers said, "What are you reading?" And I was like, "Oh, it's just a pagan book." And he was like, "What do you mean pagan? I've not heard of that. You won't believe how many times I hear that."
Not even heard of it?
Just the word pagan. Not even heard of it. And I just said, well, it's a nature-worshipping religion. And it was like, what, like you worship trees? And in a very insulting way. And I was like, yeah, actually.
Trees are stupid.
Yeah, and he was like, well, that's just stupid. And I was like, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But you know, if I'd been sat there and reading the Bible and it was like, well, Jesus is stupid, and I'd be like, I'm allowed to be offended at that, but because it's calling trees stupid, I'm not allowed to be offended at that because trees are everywhere and you can actually see a tree. I'm not going to go into that part, but
well, still, either way, people should be respectful for one another.
Yeah, exactly.
Just across the board.
I wasn't trying to convert him. I was just answering his question. That was it.
Yeah.
And you know who you were, whoever it was, if you ever should happen to come across his vlogcast in the future.
Please comment.
Yeah, please do.
Bless you.
I remember recently as well, I was on the Underground in London, and I'm trying to remember what necklace I was wearing. Again, it's another thing. It's happened because of my tattoos as well, because I have a rune tattooed on both sides. And the one that I have in the middle is a Viking one, the one that's in the middle there.
Right.
But again, as we're calling neo-Nazism, has adopted a lot of them. Before I got this one, I was going to get the Black Sun, which is the ultimate power symbol. Right. But that was actually on the floor of one of Hitler's castles, and it had been utilized in a lot of his work. And I didn't know that until I researched it, and I'm so glad I didn't get it, because it is totally like a white power symbol. And I was like, thank goodness I did not go ahead with that. So I know we're talking about being called a Satanist, but I haven't really been called a Satanist. It's been more of that as an overlapping more than anything.
Yeah.
So
that's really interesting. And you know, honestly, it may be different here. Like I said, I live in the Bible Belt in the southern United States. I don't know if everyone would know what paganism is, but you would probably run into more people thinking of you being something to do with Satanists. Of course, to be fair, I think a lot of people, now not everybody, like I said, I'm not trying to bash anyone's beliefs, but I think a lot of people that are scared of anything that they don't know or understand just by default label something evil.
Yeah, it makes people comfortable to just say, well, that's what you are.
Yeah, you're not like me, so you're bad. But it's definitely has a negative connotation, an evil overall. I never per se thought like that. Thankfully I've always been the type of person where it's just like, if I don't understand something, I'm just like, well, I just don't know about that. But you know, if you just take into consideration the way that people think about magic or rituals, like even the which is funny, because if you take, say, like the Catholic Church, technically speaking, they have a lot of rituals.
Ritual, I'm sure if you looked up a dictionary term for ritual. Yeah. I have a dictionary here. Should we do this?
We can.
Let's find out what it actually means, shall we? And I'm sure it has no evil.
I would wholeheartedly take the extra time just for that. Because that's what I'm trying to say. You know, a ritual is this, you know, getting up and having coffee every morning is a ritual.
Yeah, it must just be a repetitive action or something.
Yeah, going to church every Sunday is a ritual. It really is.
Ritual. Relating to rites or ceremonies, fixed ceremonies. Yeah. And they actually quote it to be religious.
Okay, so it's very vague across the board. But do you agree, and it may be different because you're in Britain, but at least here, the idea of ritual sort of brings a negative connotation.
Yeah.
Because someone was like, oh, they were hiding in the woods and performing a ritual.
Yeah.
And it's like, what was it? They were roasting marshmallows. But they always do it. It's a ritual. You know, but you know, that's one of those things where people just for lack of education or whatnot are having a problem with that. So that's it's definitely a problem.
I mean, I do rituals, but then a lot of them, because I write my own rituals, and I was telling you last week I did a ritual with my best friend, who I hold as close as a brother, that I call a soul friend ritual, which was basically just committing ourselves to each other to be there for each other. And surely that is just, there's nothing, we didn't kill any lambs, we didn't slaughter any babies, basically all we did was just shared a drink together. And there is no difference to that as like sitting down and cheers with a load of friends and let's share a meal together. There's no difference.
To me, it reminds me of when you're kids and you make a promise to, to not tell a secret or something, and you spit on your hand and you shake hands.
Yeah, it's very similar.
That's the equivalent, and really, it's not important to anybody but you.
Yeah,
and that other person. Yeah, and it's not an ancient ritual to some secret deity or something like that. We didn't have any gods involved
or anything. We just said to nature that's with us now as a witness. That was it. That's all we used as a witness for it. We weren't interested in invoking anything, or getting some power to it. It's just
to be devil's advocate, though. Like I said, I wanted to try to be, which I wholeheartedly. I don't necessarily think this, but people would say right now, and there may be someone out there right now saying this. They would say, "Well, you know what? You doing that because you're not doing that in a way that is, I guess, what you'd say in the eyes of God, or something like that. Because a lot of people believe if you're doing anything, I think that would fall under worship of man or one another or self, which I honestly don't. Me personally, I don't feel like it's wrong to worship yourself. I just think that's healthy. I don't think you should be conceited, but you should have a healthy respect for yourself. You should be your own temple. But but I think that's what people would say. They would go, well, just the fact of you not doing that. So what would be your response if someone were to say that to you?
That I'm not doing it in the eyes of God, you mean?
And but in the idea of it could possibly accidentally go into the realm of something bad or evil or something like they may even be they may even mean it in your own protection, like, oh honey, you don't understand, you're not doing that in the eyes of God, so you might be you might be being tricked, and you're you doing that, you're invoking something, even though you don't know. So, which is a hard question, but I'd like to know your opinion.
I mean, as I said, like, using nature as my church, I don't believe that it has to be a building I have to go to for a start. But before I start every ritual, I basically would have like a ring of protection and ask for protection and raise the vibrational energies that we would have between us to a higher frequency, as you would call it, because I believe that anything evil is lower frequency, and if you raise your awareness and your consciousness higher, then you would be more in line with more protective energies. That's the way that I see it anyway. So.
Okay, well, that's understandable. And to clarify, when you say higher and lower frequencies and all that, that's just, that could be literal, but it may not be exactly scientific, because I've heard a lot of people call it New Age stuff. I think it's cutting edge science, really, but a lot of people talk, I've heard lower frequency, higher frequency, and I've heard conflicting things, but I think really it's just using those words are to convey a level of I don't know, like a thought level or an emotional level. We just say frequency because there's not very many other ways, and it very well may literally be frequency.
Like recordable in some way.
Recordable, but really I just don't want that to be confused, because a lot of people go, well, lower frequency doesn't equal that or whatever, but you're just saying of something of lesser and something of higher and a better place. Well, that's interesting. Higher, better place. We hear that a lot, don't we? That's wow. That kind of just smacked me in the face. Which is interesting because let there be light, and then light frequency is waves. There's some interesting things there. Interesting, because that has everything to do with literal frequencies.
Yeah, exactly. That have been recorded.
I guess, because we don't have a whole lot more time here left. I guess one thing, if I was going to play the devil's advocate again for anyone that might be listening, just to really drive it home, I'm trying to think out of the box. So you're saying that if a Christian person or a Muslim person or whatever other religion person was standing together, of course I know this answer, but I want to hear your opinion.
Yeah, okay.
This is sort of rhetorical. Was standing together and there was a circle of bears or lions or something going to attack everyone. You as a pagan, self-proclaimed, would not feel or think any difference between you and the other human beings standing there, and you would wholeheartedly, is that kind of the truth? Because I want to, because I think really that's where the rubber meets the road on a lot of these religious or philosophical beliefs. Is, does it stand in parallel to your fellow man, or does it stand against your fellow man? So like would you fight for other people's belief systems to have the right to believe those belief systems as well, that's not your own?
Yeah, well, I just think we all came from the same thing. There was we were all made from an explosion that happened, and we all are created from the same atoms. And I just think overall belief systems are just there to make us feel better. It's not,
right,
as you say, it's not, which I'm not going to say scientifically proven, because yes, it does make us feel better, as in brain waves changing and making us feel better and making our bodies do something. But I just think overall faith has hope attached to it, and that is the important part to it, really. That's what it should be important about. It shouldn't be teaching someone fear or to control people. So
yeah, I agree.
That's the part of it that I see as being wrong. So we just have to see each other as actual human beings, and belief systems are belief systems, but they're not who we are, I don't think.
I've always had, going in tangent of that, I've always had this really, because I'm a fantasy writer and artist as well. I've always had an interesting idea, and maybe someday I'll get to do it. I've always wanted to depict something as in different tribes of people that maybe live on completely different continents, or maybe even different planets, that meet up together. And it always felt gratifying to maybe have a story or an ideal of both tribes completely respect one another and completely, even though it's completely not their belief, but both are peaceful, but they worship a different god maybe, and they dress completely different, but they both come at each other in a giving way, and a just so much in such a respectful way. And I really feel like if we could find that in the world today, with no matter if you believe in God, Allah, or you worship trees, or literally you worship the spaghetti monster that created the universe, whatever it may be, whether it's the Big Bang and science is your thing and you don't like anything else, you don't believe in any religious or spirituality whatsoever, the fact of the matter is we're all here and we have to get along. And who's to say? Because, some people claim to have died and came back. Did they really die? I don't know. I've never seen anyone resurrected from 10 years ago who said, hey, man, for this last 10 years, I've been in the realm of the dead. So who knows?
Yeah.
So, but I think in the end, and that's why I wanted to do this episode, and I want to do more things that can go along this way too. I guess we have to know we can be different. It's okay, You know, it's just like you and I having the stance on guns, and not to go too far into it. You being from Britain, I can understand easily having a very if you see a gun, you have a very nervous reaction to that. As an American, that's really common for me because I don't necessarily feel threatened.
Yeah.
But if I go there and climatize to what you have, I would probably feel a lot of peace.
Yeah.
Because there would be no question of it.
Exactly.
But you coming here, it might do you well to climatize and go, well, you know what? Not everybody that has a gun is necessarily a killer.
Yeah.
Some people are absolutely there and they would never pull it if they didn't have to. And in that same ideal, it would do us both good to understand the other person. I think religions, it would be wonderful if religions could do that too.
Well, that's just where we're all coming from. It's like if you could just take time to actually be open to other things instead of just accepting what you're given. And
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you again, but there's
okay.
sort of a friend, a connection that I'm sure other people are going, what? You didn't ask her about that? I'm sure that's the reason why you read the LaVey books. To have an understanding of it.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't necessarily agree with stuff he says.
Yeah, I've not subscribed to anything. I'm just like...
Yeah,
I can't
you just
have an
wanted to
opinion on
understand.
something if I haven't read it. I'm not going to go on people's word of mouth like, oh, did you know? It's like, no, I didn't, and that's why I went and read it. That's it in the end. I haven't sat here and gone, well, now the 12 satanic rules is my life now because I read them, and because I've read it, that's what it should be.
Yeah.
Nobody should have to do that. Why can't I just be like, well, I like one of those rules, and I'm going to apply that to my life to make me a better person? Why can't people do that and just take whatever they want from... I mean, it was like that in the Life of Pi movie, as I was telling you, that he researched all religions, and his father said to him, well, to have faith in everything is to have no faith at all. And I was like, that is the most ridiculous quote I've ever heard in my life. I was like, he just was like, well, why can't I research everything and believe in Jesus as well as Allah and also read the Kabbalah? And he just was like, why can't I do everything? And he was like, well, you just can't. And he was like, why? And I think if we all thought that way and just thought, just to read up on things and actually inform yourself is more important than, because that's where the fear of like, oh, I don't know about that religion, so I'm going to treat it with fear and hate and not try and be friends with that person because I don't know who they are.
Absolutely. That probably really is the problem, isn't it? It's the lack of education, because once you understand it better, you don't get because it's sort of like horror movies back in the day when you couldn't see what the thing was. You were always more scared of it, when in reality everything's that way now. You know, if you don't understand something, you're going to be more scared of it.
And something that is not helping is taking religious education out of school. That is not helping at all, because they've started to get rid of it because they don't know how to deal with it. They're just like, oh, it's too much to handle, so we'll just not deal with that elephant in the room.
Absolutely.
Why can't I just be like, well, this week we'll learn about this religion and this one, and then by the end of the year you've covered it all, and then children will have absorbed all of it and go, I like that one the best, that resonated with me, and that's all that's important, because you give children options then, instead of teaching them one thing.
And, you know, I don't agree with it, but give parents the option to say, you know what, I just really don't want my child to learn about X. You know what, I don't believe that, but that is your child. You're the parent. That's fine. But I think the vast majority of parents would just be like, well, okay. Fine, you know, and I think overall that would definitely help. And that's a really good point that I'm glad you made.
Because that's where it starts. That's where the hate starts.
I learned about several religions back in school. Of course, we didn't dwell on it, and we didn't necessarily. I guess what it is the key is to learn about religions with an unbiased opinion.
Yeah.
Just say, instead of this is fact that what they say is true, maybe this is fact that people believe this is fact. That there are people that believe this.
Yep.
Do what you will with the information. You know.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Which that's what school should be anyway, not just a memory test of like, did you listen properly? Because now we're going to test you on it.
Well, that's
you know.
That's a whole nother can to open as well, because I agree with that, because we're not taught to question everything and to think for ourselves and come to conclusions. We're taught to memorize only and exactly what you're told. And if you do, you get a cookie. Yeah,
and get rewarded and get a good grade so you can then go on, which was in that Conscious Evolution movie. There's a whole section on education. I was just yelling at the screen, going, "Oh my god!" But yeah, as we say, that's a whole other kettle of fish.
And I'll tell you, if any viewers have made it this far, which thank you that you have.
Yes.
As we're starting to wrap up, if I can remember so, I definitely wouldn't mind putting a link to both of those.
Definitely
things in the description for sure, because I'm telling you, man, you can watch this stuff and study this stuff and probably for the rest of your life and never finish. But I just implore people to hit the high points and to study these other religions and to understand things. I feel like maybe now we understand paganism a little bit better. Of course, that was probably just scratching the surface. But I think that's enough to get people to know it's not necessarily anything.
It just gets rid of some of the stereotypes, I think. That's basically what I think all religions have. You know, they have a stereotype attached to them, but people just already know, but then don't bother to look further.
Well, it's, are there evil Christian people? Yes. Are there good Christian people? Yes. Are there evil pagans? Yes. Are there good pagans? Yes. There's good and bad in everything. Not one belief system is inherently one way or the other. There's
humans at the end of the day.
Yeah, they're humans. This is not black hat, white hat, spaghetti western movie. This is a gray area, and you can't turn off your intellect and just believe one belief system without question. And that's the whole idea of the podcast.
Yes.
Keep asking your own questions. Keep doing your own research. Don't take things for face value, and never stop being a student of the world, basically.
Yes. And if after this podcast you think, you know what, religion's too much for me, I don't want to have a religion, that's fine. You go and do that, because
there's that too.
That's fine. You're believing in just you then. Well, how did that go wrong?
Don't let science become a religion either. Make sure you're open-ended about science too, because too many scientists almost have an overtly religious belief where they won't change what they think too, which stereotypical religious belief. Where they just won't change anything. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. I'm trying to think if there was any one last thing. I don't think I necessarily have any questions. Probably an hour from now I'll have like 10.
Got any projects you're working on at the moment? Let's just have a round off with that, and then you can pimp yourself out with anything that you're doing at the moment.
I guess the only one other thing, and you might be hinting at me seeding that, I do have that rebuttal video that I'm trying to do. That's what's his name? Brian Cunning. Which this is just going into bonus time. I honestly, which I really don't want to say much about it at all, but I have such a love.
Just say, keep an eye out for it.
I have such a love-hate relationship for this guy, because I went to his site and I literally laughed out loud in entertainment. I want to see more, but then some stuff is really cringeworthy. So I may have, and I don't want to do this very often, but I may have soon as well on this exact same channel. So be looking for it. It may be kind of on the long side, just like one of our podcasts. Basically, to sum it up really quick for everybody, it's a documentary that someone else did, and I want to say my opinion on it. I'm not calling the guy out for anything or anything. I just
kind of a review in a way.
A review for educational purposes. Giving my point of view in a peaceful, well-rounded, trying to put it together like that. So it might be interesting. So
yes.
I mean, what about you? Anything?
Well, in Vlogtown, since got my own channel,
which we need to link.
YouTube.com/scarred_6. There you go. That it is right there. I will be going to New York in 2 weeks, so I will be documenting New York
That'll be
Comic Con.
fun.
So New York Comic Con information will be coming your way, as well as cosplays. I'll be cosplaying as Lois Lane and Harley Quinn. So
Right.
keep an eye out for those.
So are you saying that we can't always be hardcore journalist conspiracy theorists?
No,
we actually
you're not
have a
allowed
life.
to be.
We actually
You
do
must
things
always
good?
be one person. You're not allowed to have other interests
Oh,
in
okay.
anything else.
Well, I'm sure someone will be looking out for that as well as I am. I'm excited. I want to see what all you do. So I guess that pretty much wraps it up.
Yep.
Thank you everyone for
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for
being
sticking
here.
with us.
Yeah.
Our crazy ideas and opinions.
Thank you. I'm sorry. You're welcome.
Never sorry. Don't apologize. No regrets.
There is no apologies for us. I'm telling you.
No.
So, but we shall catch you next time. Signing off.
Good day to you all.
We'll let you know when it's happening again. Hopefully.
Yes.
Or maybe-
Lovely chaps and chapettes. We'll sort out what the next one's going to be because we haven't decided yet. So
Definitely.
coming soon.
Pancake.
Yes.